everyone, I'm here at the Bible reading. I hope you're having a good day. Let's go over our prayer requests first. Please keep the following people in prayer: Luke Boggs and his mom Bridget. Sherm, he's in a lot of pain today with his arm. Please keep him in prayer. Rhonda Karshner, mom's not feeling too well. Cindy and Jen. Dora Parker. Danette Rager. Layla and her son Emil. Bonnie Jean. Elizabeth Jeffries and her grandson Dominic. Melly Stanley. Wetzel Dempsey. Jimmy Myers. Abby and Liam. And Ray and Donna Dunlap. And Joyce White. Alright guys. Kind of updated that a little bit. So what we'll be reading today is... I need to get this hand sanitizer out of the way. John chapter 18, verse 25 through chapter 19, verse 22. Psalm 119, verses 113 through 128. And Proverbs chapter 16, verses 10 and 11. Okay. So today we'll be reading about Peter's second and third denial of, being with Jesus, and Jesus before Pilate. So you'll see some more about what happens to Jesus. Jesus sentenced to be crucified. You'll see a little bit of what happens to him before he was crucified here. Meanwhile, Simon Peter was still standing there warming himself, because they were out by the fire. A bunch of people warming themselves outside the courtyard where Jesus had come to after he was arrested. So they asked him, "You aren't one of his disciples too, are you?" He denied it, saying, "I am not." One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him, "Didn't I see you with him in the garden?" Again, Peter denied it, and at that moment, a rooster began to crow. Just like Jesus told him. He said, Peter's like, "I'll, go to death with you." And Jesus is like, "Will you really? Because before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times. Thrice, Peter denied. Then the Jewish leaders took Jesus from Cappaeus to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanliness, they did not enter the palace because they wanted to be able to eat the Passover. So Pilate came out to them and asked, "What charges are you bringing against this man?" "If he were not a criminal," they replied, "we would not have handed him over to you." "But we have no right to execute anyone," they objected. This took place to fulfill what Jesus had said about the kind of death he was going to die. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your own idea?" Jesus asked, "or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "Your own people and chief priests handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jewish leaders. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. In fact, the reason I was born and came into the world is to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of the truth listens to me." "What is the truth?" retorted Pilate. With this he went out again to the Jews gathered there and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him. But it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of the Passover. Do you want me to release the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him. Give us Barabbas." Now Barabbas had taken part in an uprising, and he also murdered. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged, had him beat. They beat him with a whip, Some of those whips have like barbed wire stuck on the ends of them, so they'll tear your skin off. Don't know what kind he was whipped with, but he was all bloody, and even a regular whip's bad enough. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They clothed him in a purple robe and went up to him again and again, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they slapped him in the face. Once more Pilate came out and said to the Jews gathered there, "Look, I am bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no basis for a charge against him." When Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them, "Here is the man." As soon as the chief priests and their officials saw him, they shouted, "Crucify! Crucify!" But Pilate answered, "You take him and crucify him. As for me, I find no basis for a charge against him." The Jewish leaders insisted, "We have a law, and according to that law, he must die, because he claimed to be the Son of God." When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid, and he went back inside the palace. "Where do you come from?" he asked Jesus. But Jesus gave him no answer. "Do you refuse to speak to me?" Pilate said. "Don't you realize I have the power either to free you or to crucify you?" Jesus answered, "You would have no power over me if it were not given you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of a greater sin." From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jewish leaders kept shouting, "If you let this man go, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar." When Pilate heard this, he brought Jesus out and sat down on the judge's seat at a place known as the Stone Pavement, which is in Aramaic is Gabbatha. It was the day of preparation of the Passover. It was about noon. "Here is your king," Pilate said to the Jews. But they shouted, "Take him away! Take him away! Crucify him!" "Shall I crucify your king?" Pilate asked. "We have no king but Caesar," the chief priests answered. Finally, Pilate handed him over to them to be crucified. Oh, no. So the soldiers took charge of Jesus, carrying his own cross. See, Pilate handed him over to be crucified, and he's so weak he can't even imagine that big heavy piece of wood that they shove into the ground and nail you to. It's got to be super, super heavy. And Jesus was trying to carry the thing on his shoulders, pulling it. But he was too weak to do so at this point from going through what all they put him through. Even more than what you're hearing here. Other books go into more detail about what they've done to him. It's horrible. So the soldiers took charge of Jesus, carrying his own cross. He went out to the place of the skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. There they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on each side, and Jesus in the middle. Pilate had a notice prepared and fastened to the cross. It read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews." Many of the Jews read this sign from the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and the sign was written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. The chief priests of the Jews protested to Pilate, "Do not write the King of the Jews," but this man claimed to be the King of the Jews. Pilate answered, "What I have written, I have written." And that was the end of that. And that's where we're stopping with the book of John today. So it's getting pretty bad. Jesus has now been crucified. It didn't tell that a guy named Simon took over carrying Jesus' cross for him. Like I said, some books go into more detail than others. I'm pain in the back of my head. Okay, so now let's go to Psalm 119, verses 113 through 128. Samk says, I hate double-minded people, but I love your law. You are my refuge and my shield. I have put my hope in your word. Away from me, you evildoers, that I may keep the commands of my God. Sustain me, God, according to your promise, and I will live. Do not let my hopes be dashed. Uphold me, and I will be delivered. I will always have regard for your decrees. You reject all who stray from your decrees, for their delusions come to nothing. All the wicked of the earth you discard like dross. Therefore I love your statutes. My flesh trembles in fear of you. I stand in awe of your laws. And Ayan says, I have done what is righteous and just. Do not lead me to my oppressors. Ensure your servant's well-being. Do not let the arrogant oppress me. My eyes fell looking for your salvation, looking for your righteous promise. Deal with your servant according to your love, and teach me your decrees. I am your servant. Give me discernment, that I may understand your statutes. It is time for you to act, Lord. Your law is being broken. Because I love your commands more than gold, more than pure gold, and because I consider all your precepts right, I hate every wrong path. And that's where we're stopping with Psalm 119 today. And then we are ending with Proverbs chapter 16, verses 10 and 11. The lips of a king speak as an oracle, and his mouth does not betray justice. Honest scales and balances belong to the Lord. All the weights in the bag are of his making. Amen. All right, guys, that was our Bible reading for today. I hope it touched your hearts. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Let's bring those souls to Jesus, and God willing, we'll see you guys again tomorrow with another Bible reading. Bye, guys. God bless. Sherm says bye.